Hi, I'm Gehanna, and you're listening to the Solo Nerdbird podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with co-creator and writer John Holland, here to promote the first issue of his new comic series, Death Reign Gehanna, now on Kickstarter until March 31st. Welcome, John.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for reaching out to me for an interview. But outside of my introduction, who is John Holland in his own words?
Oh, I don't know. Those type of questions always throw me, but I've been writing for like probably since I was a kid. I've been reading forever. I can't remember a time that I didn't have a book in my hand. Like a Dr. Seuss book or a comic book or something. Yeah, I always used to say I've always been a member of a book club. My parents put me in like a Dr. Seuss book club when I was probably like 4 or 5. And then, I was in the science fiction book club and the mystery book club and up until they kind of did away with a lot of those book clubs. I was always buying books through the book club. So I've always been reading. I've always been interested in writing. And I started writing, when I was probably in high school. During the 80s, I started getting published by some indie publishers like Fantagraphics, Kitchen Sink, Innovation. Some of those publishers did a lot of work. Kind of took a break for a little while, I guess around the beginning of the 2000s. And then when I came back, I started to self-publish more. I do a lot of self-publishing now through my Diebold Comics. But I still do work. I've worked with It's Alive Comics, Insane Comics. I'm doing some stuff with Antarctica Press. So, I'll still work with different publishers and stuff, but I just find it easier just to self-publish my own comics now. It's, kind of takes out the middleman.
Uh-huh. I mean, I guess can you just elaborate a little bit more? Because I self-publish a lot of my own books as well, and it's like
Mhm.
I kind of want to work with a publisher to kind of just take a little bit of that pressure off of me, so they can kind of do
Yeah.
something because it's like you're doing everything, but you've been doing it a lot longer than me. You've done both, so you said it's. I guess it's easier. Like, wait, how is it easier?
Well, I guess it's easier and harder. In same regards, I wouldn't mind working with a publisher because it does take some of the pressure off of you. It's easier that, if I want to publish a comic, I can just, if I can, as long as I can, afford to pay the artist and the letterer and a lot of my comics right now are black and white, so I don't you have to pay a colorist. But if I decide I want to write a comic, I can just write it, get it published, send it to the printer, have it published. And one of the things I like about self-publishing is, most publishers will have like a certain page limit. Like your comic is 24 pages or 20 pages. I'll be writing a comic. I've got a comic that I was writing called The Getaway Driver, and it was supposed to be a 24-page comic. When I started writing it, I realized, oh, this is going to be a little longer than I expected. And it ended up being 36 pages. But because there's nobody to tell me no, I made it 36 pages. Another comic that I was going to do called Robot Sex was going to be a one issue, one and done. It ended up being, by the time I got over halfway done, I realized, oh, this is going to be probably 2 issues. And then by the time I was working the second issue, I was like, no, this is going to be probably continuing series because I just liked the whole concept so much. And it just more things kept coming to me. So I didn't have to worry about wrapping it up and trying to tie everything up in a neat little bow, because I had to fulfill like the 20 pages or 24 pages. So, there's advantages and disadvantages, I think, to both sides. Advantages of a publisher is they do more of the work. You just send the script into them and they get everything done, and hopefully they would pay you. Self-publishing, I haven't really seen a whole lot of money self-publishing. So if there's a publisher out there that wants to publish me, I'd be glad to, within limits, especially if they could take off some of that burden and actually pay me too. And that's one of the things. This is really the only second Kickstarter I've done. I just retired about a little over a year ago now. And before that, I had a pretty decent job, and I don't have a lot of expenses. I'm single. Most of my bills are paid, so most of my money went to paying for my comics I self-published. So it was easier for me to, okay, I could hire the artist, I could pay the printer, because I was making that money and I wasn't spending it on anything else. Now that I'm retired, there's a big difference. I don't have that much money coming in, so Now I'm looking at trying to do more Kickstarters because hopefully the Kickstarter can pay for the printing, can pay for the other creators, and hopefully in the end have a little bit of money left over too to make some type of profit off of it. I'm not looking to, I mean, I'd like to make a lot of money off this, but I'd like to at least make a little bit of money off of this as I go along too, and not, just dig myself in the hole.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So speaking of the Kickstarter, this comic name, as I mentioned before, is Devran Gehanna. So what is this story about, and what should readers expect as the series goes along?
This is first it was the artist Travis Smith is the one that basically came up with the initial concept. He's a really big fan of like the old 90s comics, especially like the Image comics like The Darkness, the Top Cow comics and one Spawn. And if you look at the artwork, you can make that connection pretty quick because the art is very similar to that artist, to the art from the old Image comics. And so we're kind of looking at the 90s as an inspiration, but we're actually going just beyond, not even just the Image, but in the 90s was Sandman came out and Hellboy and Sin City. And 90s was actually a really pretty good time for comic books. So we're looking at kind of using all of that for inspiration into this comic. Basically, in this comic, the world Gehanna is it's a world that's not connected to reality. It's like on this planet there's like if you want to say cities or regions or counties, like you could be in this one region and it could be full of demons. And if you were walking and you kept walking, you might be into another region that's full of vampires. And then another region you may find that where time runs backwards or time loops or, so there's on this world, anything can happen basically. And in this first storyline, basically what's happening is cities from Earth are disappearing from Earth and appearing on Gehanna into the region of demons, and the demons are trying to kill the humans as they appear. And we've got the good guys are Jericho Black, Allison, and Steve the Death Machine, and they're the ones kind of trying to save the humans from the demons as we go along. But as we go into further stories, we can tell almost any type of story we want in this setting.
Mm-hmm. So, as you've mentioned before, you've written and collaborated in a number of projects with worlds and like creatures that have spanned across genres such as science fiction, horror, slice of life, what have you.
Yeah.
Has there ever been an issue of playing into cliches, or do you lean into them with your own twist? Like, how do you maintain that the world that you're creating in is yours and not someone else's?
I try, I think, I try to recognize any cliches that I'm working on and, move beyond them if possible. Sometimes, cliche is a cliche because it's just something that happens a lot, and you have to kind of, I guess, take that in and work, use that. But, I try to go beyond that. I try to find I guess, something different about whatever I'm writing, and move beyond just the cliche of it.
Okay. Um, so I know you mentioned that Deanna is, I guess, is more like Jay Travis is the artist. This is more like of his project. I guess you kind of jumped on and helped him out with
Yeah,
among other collaborators as well.
yeah. Travis and I have worked together for like the last year or so. We've been trying to come up with a project. We both throw ideas back and forth between us and trying to find something. So this was the one he kind of came up and threw back, and we kind of worked it out together. So we've just been trying to figure something out to collaborate on, and that was worth going to Kickstarter on. We've come up with a lot of ideas over the last year. And then he put this up on Facebook, the original cover, the image that became the wraparound cover, and everybody seemed to really like it. We're getting a lot of likes, a lot of people commenting about it. So we figured, okay, this seems to be something more people have kind of connected to than a lot of the other stuff we've put up. So we decided to try to give this one a shot.
Yeah, so how did you meet up with Travis, and like I'm looking at your other collaborators here as well. Like how did you, I guess, how did you find them, or how did he find them? How did you guys connect with them? And what is it about them that made you both feel like they were the right people to work with?
Most of the collaborators that I've worked with in the last probably 5 years, I've found on Facebook. I know a lot of people hate Facebook, and Facebook is, like this big bad entity. And there's a lot of wrong with Facebook. There's a lot of, but Facebook has all these, groups, like comic book fans and comic book groups, and groups, writers looking for artists and artists looking for writers, and almost every um, collaborator that I found in the last 5 years, it's been by going on to these groups, and I'll just make a post looking for an artist. I've got a comic I need illustrated, and then the after that, it's just a matter of shifting through about hundreds of people that have that answer me and say, hey, I want to draw it, and trying to figure out who do you want to work with, and I have to look at a lot of things. I look at what my budget is, what the artist budget is, because there's some artists that I'll talk to, and I'll think, oh, this is a great artist, and they may say, well, their budget is this amount, and if it's out of my budget, I always tell them, I'm like, and I never try to work people down. I never say, well, why don't you draw this? And it's like, if their budget is too high for me, that's fine, because everyone needs to make their what they expect. So just going through, finding an artist that I think would be appropriate for the book, somebody that I like their work. Hernan Gonzalez, who was an artist I worked on, Alma and A Girl and Her Dog, two of my more recent comics. I found him on Facebook. He's from Brazil, and we just work back and forth, through the internet. And Travis was the same thing. He was actually on Facebook, and he was looking to create like a studio. He wanted to gather together a bunch of creators, like other artists, inkers, letterers, writers, and create a studio so we could just work together and put out our own product. And that's where the Exile Studios comes from on the cover. We're publishing under Diebold Comics and Exile Studios right now. We're probably going to try to find something a little more easier than a double-sided publisher in a sense. But so Exile Studios was his brainchild at first, and it kind of worked in the beginning, but in the end, it really didn't work that well. We got a lot of people that were interested in it that kind of signed up for it, but then kind of people fell by the wayside. And then some of them, and the purpose of the studio was to get people together, and we were all going to work without pay at first to create the product, and then I'll try to get paid, in the end. So, so Travis and I kind of are the last two people standing from it in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been, since then, we've been trying to find that project to work on. We've probably got half a dozen to a dozen more projects that we're kind of throwing out there, and that, we may come back to, and we may try, in addition to this, because we're hoping that this Kickstarter takes off and we can make enough money to pay for it. We make enough money, a little bit extra money, so we have something of our own, and then we can put out another book. We're hoping to put out a second issue of this, and then even more issues of other things too. We'd like to get to the point where we could do maybe 2 or 3 books, on a regular basis through Kickstarter, and kind of make some money for it. But I'll tell you, this has been a hard month. I've never realized how hard Kickstarter is.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't really know how to maneuver through crowdfunding. It's kind of tricky to do it. I mean, it's a good thing that you're not doing it, by yourself. You have, collaborators and people who've done it before. But speaking on, other projects that you and Travis want to do, like you have other stories that you want to publish, that you are both working on right now. What do you do if you do have like a lot of work in progresses that you kind of like put to the side, or that you may have abandoned, like quote unquote abandoned, And I guess what advice could you offer to other creators in regards to that, like work in progresses and abandoned stories?
I'm probably the worst person to ask that as far as abandoning stories because I'm literally probably working on about 6 other projects right now. I'm always working on something. And part of that is it helps me not, I'm going to knock on wood because I say this, and then the one time it's going to happen is it saves me from getting writer's block.
Mhm.
If I'm working on something and I get stuck, I'll just move to the next project. I'll go, okay, let me start working on this one. And it usually works. And I can work on that and then I'll come back to the other thing. But I've got like Alma, which I think I mentioned before.
Mhm.
That's still an ongoing concern. That's actually going to probably be my next Kickstarter. That's what I'm working with Hernand on. That's going to be an ongoing series. That's basically is what if Buffy was a 72-year-old grandmother? Uh, yeah, that's my when I'm at conventions. I published an issue of that, the first issue, about a year ago to sell at conventions, and that's usually when I use that tagline. It almost always sells the book. Even people that don't know that have never watched Buffy knows who Buffy is. It's like Buffy's become this almost iconic character now that everybody kind of knows who she is, even if they've
Mhm.
never watched it. I'm surprised by how many, I guess, younger people have never seen it. I'll say, hey, have you ever seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer? And they'll go like, no. And I'll go like, no. And then I go, but you know who it is. And they'll go, oh yeah, I know who she is.
Mhm.
So, I'm still working on that. I'm working on a series with another artist called Robot Sex. I'm working on another series uh, with another artist called 2 Tons of Fury. I'm working on the work with Travis. So I try. Sometimes books do get abandoned just because there's not enough hours in the day and not enough money to publish everything. But I'm really pretty good about keeping stuff to the side, and then maybe, and it's happened before where I may start a new project and I'll think, well, this old project has parts of it that would work into the new project. So I kind of, maybe build that back up or bring it up. And it may not be what I originally started with, but I might be able to put into something new and make a new project out of it. But I like it, just keeps me fresh. I think if I had to work on one project, and this could have been my downfall too, because maybe I should have started with one project and I'd probably be at issue 50 by now, if I was only doing one book. But instead, I do so many different types of books that I'm only like 2 or 3 issues into anything. So, I don't, looking back, I'm not sure which would have been the better path to follow.
I mean, yeah, working on the same project for a long period of time can get like tiresome and boring, and then it starts to feel more like a chore than as a creative project that you're working on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think there's an issue with working on multiple projects at one time. It's just making sure there's no promise of anything that'll come from it, in
Yeah.
a way. So there's no pressure on you to have to finish it. There's no pressure, with publishers or other collaborators or audience members that are like, oh, what happened to that thing you talked about a couple of months ago and I really liked it, and are you gonna do something with it? And it's just like, no, that was just practice, or just that was just something I wanted to put out there just
Yeah.
because I had it on my mind. So yeah, I don't think there's any issue with that. As long as you put it out there or tell yourself that nothing is gonna come from it. So,
Yeah.
well, is there anything else that you wanted to share about Deaf Ring Gehanna, the first issue? Maybe rewards for potential backers if you
Yeah.
know them.
We've actually went in and just added some new tiers, and we've added some new covers, because we're trying to refresh it because everybody talked about, that middle stretch is when basically it dies, and
Hmm.
that's proven true. We've really been struggling this middle stretch. So we went in and kind of refreshed it. We added some new tiers, some new covers. We actually had 2 tiers that we offered original artwork with, that we actually sliced the prices. Travis, one of the tiers we were offering was for $350. You got a page, you could get a page of his original art from the comic, and you got 3 different uh, copies of the comic with 3 different variant covers. We just slashed that price to $100. which is a pretty good price when you figure the 3 comics are almost $60 worth of value by themselves. So basically, you're getting that comic for that original page of art for $40. And then we had the wraparound cover that Travis did for the book that was originally $700. I mean, it's a gorgeous piece of work too. And now that's going to go for $350 for the tier. We've also got a tier that we've actually proven really pretty popular, a drawn in tier. You know, you can, for the price of the tier, you can be drawn into the comic. And that's actually, I think we've had 3 people or 4 people actually do that, pay for that tier. And we all offered 2 new tiers. One of the tiers is you can be drawn into a cover. We'll draw you on the cover of the comic and print, and we'll send you 10 copies of the comic. And then we've also got a tier for the second issue where we'll draw you in as one of the supporting characters. Like you'll have lines in the comic. You'll be in it from the beginning to the end of that issue. You know, you won't be on every page and every conversation, but you'll have a good little part into that comic. So if you've ever wanted to be in a comic book, this is your chance to be a character in the comic.
Yeah, I'm looking at the tiers now. That I mean, one person pledged to be on the cover. That's $1,000 right there.
Yeah,
That's
that was,
cool.
yeah. We were very we put it up not really expecting, you know, figuring what can it hurt, and
Hmm.
somebody pledged for it, you know, so we're thrilled with it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So John, are you going to be at any cons this year?
Last year I did a lot of conventions. I live right outside of New Orleans, and last
Mhm.
year I went up to like Heroes Con up in North Carolina. I was in conventions in Tennessee, Florida, Texas. This year I'm kind of cutting back a little just for expenses. I'm doing a lot of I'm doing a lot of, like, around here they have library cons where a lot of the local libraries will do conventions,
Oh.
where I found really good because most people that come into the library are already interested in reading, you
Hmm.
know. So I've done some of my best sales at these library cons, you know, and I'm reaching an audience that not necessarily is that familiar with comic books, because, you know, they're coming into the library to check out a book, and then they walk along the convention and see all this stuff. So I interact with a lot of people that, you know, don't really know a lot about comics or haven't read comics in years. Uh, but I probably will do. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to do Heroes Con again, because that was like I think it was a 13-hour drive, and it was a little expensive, but it was
Oof.
a really good con. And I may do a few. I may do Memphis again. I put in for Baltimore for small press, the Small Press Expo,
Hmm.
but you know, they have a lottery to pick who can, you know, buy a table. They get so many people trying to get in, so that just happened yesterday. So I have till April to see if I even have the option to buy a table. So I may do a few, but I'm not really hitting as many cons this year as I did Fan Expo in New Orleans. I may do Fan Expo in Dallas. I haven't heard yet. I don't think they've announced who they're you know, who's, if they've given away the tables or not yet. So and, you know, as it goes on, I may decide to start doing more cons, you know, later in the season. But at the moment, it's mostly like kind of local at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be nice if you get picked for the expo in Baltimore, and then we can meet each other.
Yeah,
So,
is that where you're from?
yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I'm hoping. I did it last year and I didn't get in, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna see, you know, and I kind of like the idea, but I've heard it's a pretty cool con. So we'll see. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I've never been to Small Press Expo. I've never been to that. I did table at Baltimore Comic Con.
Okay,
But that's pretty much it. I want them to bring back, I'm hoping they bring back the Book Fest. Um, because I mean, obviously with COVID, a lot of stuff went away,
oh
but they're
yeah,
trying to bring it back and they're gonna move it to somewhere else. Normally it was right there by the harbor for the longest
okay,
time, but it's not gonna be down there anymore, they said. So they're, I guess, looking for a new place, or they're trying to get it together before they try to promote and get people to come. But I would prefer to do that since I sell books. I mean, I did pretty well at Baltimore Comic Con. It's just for something at that price, at that level, and being an independent creator, I would recommend people to share a table at first.
yeah.
so they can make their money back easier.
Yeah,
But yeah, I gotta look into small press. I've never heard of small press expo. And
yeah.
then
It's basically it's only creators. It's like, and you have to. I think they have it up for a month where you can like apply, and it's like a lottery system. I guess they have so many people apply to it that,
um
you know, but
uh-huh.
it's only create. They don't even have like vendors or anybody. It's just creators. All the tables are just creators of at that convention. So I don't know. Problem with conventions, like you're saying, tables are so expensive. If I have to travel, most of my comics I price at $5 a piece. So I have
Mhm.
to sell a lot of $5 comics to make back, the table, the hotel price.
Mhm.
It's a lot of, and it's hard to sell that many comic books at a convention if the table's like $200-300, the hotel room, the travel. So it's I am trying. I do want to get out to more conventions that are away from New Orleans or New Or the just the kind of the Gulf South, because I'm trying. That's why last year I tried to branch out more into Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. I'm trying to branch out more because a lot of these local cons around here I've been to so many times that people come up and like, oh, wait a minute, you don't have anything new out yet. I've seen everything you got. So
Yeah.
I can't put out stuff quick enough that's as quick as some of these conventions are down here. So I need to branch out and get more eyes on my books in other places, I think.
Exactly. So, but again, I want to thank co-creator and writer John Holland for joining us here today to promote his first issue of his new comic series, Death Rain Gehanna, now on Kickstarter until March 31st. John, where can people find you online?
I have a site at Ko-fi, that site where buy
Yeah.
the coffee. They've actually set their site up where it's you can do everything. You can have a shop on there, you can do a blog, you can have tiers, all of that. So under Ko-fi, under Diebold Comics, if you just go to Ko-fi and then type in Diebold Comics, you can find me there. I'm on pretty much every social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, all of them. I'm there either as Diebold Comics or John Holland. Most of them Diebold Comics. I think Facebook, I'm still under John Holland, but everything
Hmm.
else is pretty much under Diebold Comics.
Well, cool. Yeah, so as John just said, all the socials and website will be listed in this episode's details alongside a Kickstarter link for those who are interested in backing the Kickstarter. Again, that's available until March 31st. Again, I am KS Garner, and you've been listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Thank you.